Hi everyone, I was just at the Bosch launch for the new Performance CX software upgrade and also the new race motor. There was a presentation by Claus Fleischer, the boss of Bosch e-bike systems, to explain the new motor. He also went into detail about how they got to the decisions they've made with regard to their motor, technical decisions and also regulatory decisions. You need to watch this video to understand. Anything else you hear is basically rumor, and this is the detail. So the first part of this video is the discussion of the new motor system and how they came to make those decisions that they did. From 14 minutes on is all of the discussion about what is a watt, how did the regulations come to be, and how do they compare globally, including why now there is a move towards a global classification for electric mountain bike motors. Remember, this is not the most exciting video. I have not done no cuts, no edits. All I've done is removed little glitches, but this is completely unedited, so there's no confusion and the words are there as they were said.
Warm welcome also from my side to the launch and the preview of the model year 26 products here in Talago in the beautiful. I would like to introduce to you this power chart. On the x-axis you have your rider cadence, so that's your input just in RPM in rotations per minute. And on the vertical y-axis you have the newton meters, and then you have the watt, 600 and 750 watt. And this is important to understand how these factors work together. And still today we are convinced that 85 newton meters and 600 watt is the value, are the values that provide the best riding performance and riding fun in relation, and that is important, to battery range and to wear and tear of the drivetrain and the chain and the cassette. And this will be perfect still for more than 95% of the riders. And this is, if you look on the data, and we went back to the CX and the CX race, which is with a smart system out there, we collected a lot of data. 75% of the time users use 330 watt or less, so they are fully in the range zone. 75%. And only 5% of the time users of the CX and CX race are above 540 watt. So this is when they are in the fun zone. And with that, we took a conscious decision to provide the CX with the default values, 85 newton meters and 600 watt. And the customer can then adjust and decide if he wants to increase the newton meter and the power output using the Flow app. And as always in life, there's trade-offs. So choose wisely, because if you increase torque and power, you will automatically increase the battery consumption. So higher output is a shorter tour. So there is trade-offs in life. You have all the possibilities and all the choices using the Flow app. And this is where the Flow app comes into the game, because the Flow app makes your riding style and your trail conditions to your own experience. And we added one more slider. You see it here and later also on the chart, the maximum power of 750 watt. So the Flow app is in the center when you want to adjust the bike to yourself and to your daily riding expectations. And what's also important, we use the Flow app as the over-the-air software update for the consumer who have that bike already. So model year 25, we ship the product with these values, and with 1st of July or in July, consumers can use the Flow app to update to these performance values. So now this is the performance upgrade, which is again the foundation, and you will ride this later today. And we will also enjoy the differences. So you will feel the differences between those values, and they are pre-adjusted in the bikes. And during the day, we will also talk a lot about power, riding modes, and control algorithms. And now, for those ambition mountain bikers who want even more, who are looking for an exceptional drive unit, we introduce the new top-of-the-range drive unit, the CXR. And CXR, the R stands for race. And this is a drive unit for exceptional situations, for demanding trails, the most demanding riders. It offers more adrenaline, more power, and more trail fun. It provides pure energy on the trail and powerful dynamics, and we put high-tech material in every detail. So we developed the CXR with professional athletes. We took their feedback and put it into the product. And it offers out of the gate 100 Newton meter maximum torque for acceleration. It provides 750 watt for dynamic climbing, and it offers 400% support for ultimate power delivery. We use high-tech materials from space travel and from racing to ensure maximum efficiency and maximum robustness. For example, titanium crank spindles. They are lightweight and provide higher robustness. We use ceramic ball bearings. They run more smoothly with even better efficiency. And we use a powder-coated magnesium housing in a new color for high durability. So with this unique design, the performance line CXR is a clear symbol of pure power. So low weight and the slim design integrates it nicely into the frame and makes also a nice handling. So the product has no compromises in regards of materials, software, or sensors. The drive unit responds immediately to your input, and from testing with our athletes, we know exactly what they need in the very minute or very second. It unfolds its power dynamically. So let's have a look. Through the interaction of the hardware and the software, we get the most out of this drive unit. And this is where our riding modes come into the play. Because riding an e-bike is not just about power, it's about power and control. And the CX and the CXR come both with dedicated riding modes for trail riding and uphill challenges. And you all know the famous EMTB mode, and you all know the powerful race mode. And as we are the inventors of the uphill flow, we add new features every year. And here comes one more thing for uphill flow enthusiasts, which is the EMTB Plus mode. And the EMTB Plus mode has its own characteristics. And with that, let's have a look on the characteristics of riding modes. Now, on this chart, on the x-axis, you have the rider power. So it's not cadence, RPM, it's rider power, so the watt, the input of your legs. And on the vertical, on the y-axis, you have the motor output. And the ratio between input and output, this is what we call the assist ratio. And now again, if we look into the data and we see that you have different ride modes from Eco to Turbo, and you see them mapped here. You can choose 4 different modes for your daily ride with the Flow app. And we looked into the data of the CX and the CX race. And the data tells us that 75% of the time being ridden on these products, users use 200% or less. 75% of the time, 200% or less assist in their ratio between input and output. And 85%, they used 300% or less. That means only 50% of the time they use 300, factor 3 or more support. And this is especially where also our EMTB mode comes into the play. And remember, the EMTB mode was the first ever dynamic progressive mode that is dynamic progressively like an S-curve. And you see now that all the characteristic curves also can use the performance upgrade from 600 to 750 watt. So the 25% power gain will be available also in all the ride modes. So now the EMTB mode is perfectly in that area between the range zone, where you can enjoy long range out of your battery, and the fun zone, where you can have fun on the trails and climbing. So let's get one step further. We know there are riders who want to increase their fun zone, and for the fun zone we have the race mode. You all know the race mode, which is super responsive and powerful. It comes up with full 400% of support. It has a difference characteristic, especially at low power input. You see the EMTB mode smooth, and you see the race mode going steep, very dynamic here. It also has a maximum extended boost of 2 meters, And it's important to know that it complies with the legal limits of 2 meters. More than 2 meters is just not allowed. And the race mode with the extended boost has these 2 meters. And now, stepping up, here comes the EMTB Plus into the game, because we saw, yeah, maybe there is a gap in riding experience, and then we experimented with our algorithms, and this is now the EMTB Plus. So that EMTB Plus brings together the both of both worlds. So EMTB Plus is between EMTB, and it starts soft here and is super sensitive to control, and it goes all the way to the highest progression, and also with the performance upgrade it would go here to 400% and 750 watt. And this is what we will show you today, the precise controllability at low power input. So it's really nice to control, and then the full power once you step on the pedal and you are accelerating. And it also comes with the extended boost, and but more or less what's more important on this chart right now is that some of the riders ask us to have 2 EMTB modes on their bike. And we thought, why? Because they said, with the Flow app, I want to adjust 1 EMTB mode more on the lower side of dynamic and assist. Why? So that they can enjoy a longer range and a smoother ride. And the second EMTB mode with higher assist and higher dynamic, +4, +5, so then they can enjoy a quicker ride and more dynamic. And now we have this out of the gate. We have this in the default values. If you ride today the EMTB mode with 600 watt and 85 Newton meters, which is the model year 25 values, and you ride the EMTB Plus, and we installed it in the bikes already with 750 watt and 100 Newton meters, you will get the difference. And both modes are installed in all the bikes, and this is the perfect setup for every e-mountain biker. So I will ride Tour Plus, EMTB, EMTB Plus and Race in the CXR, or Tour Plus, EMTB, EMTB Plus and Turbo in the normal CX. And these two make perfect sense. This is more for range, and this is more for fun. So with that, we have the intelligent and dynamic support up to 400%, and as I mentioned earlier, it comes also with an extended boost, which we also optimized to control very fine and very sensitive, and also strong and powerful in the same way. So it provides the right answer for every riding situation, and it's another example for more power and more control. And there's one word up here, which is dynamic control. And dynamic control is built into the EMTB Plus, and this is your perfect traction control. And the traction control works especially on challenging surfaces, and our sensors detect and provide information to the software, and the software intelligently regulates the power output to the rear wheel. So it works as your traction control. It helps climbing steep trails and masters with confidence, especially on challenging trails, so that you stay in the fun area of the maximum flow. So these features, EMTB Plus and dynamic control, will be part of your experience during the CX ride today. So we will have later 2 groups, and everyone will ride one time in the CX group, and this is part of the experience. So summary for the sportive riding modes: there is a mode for everyone, for every riding condition, for every riding situation, more into the range, more into the fun, and you can adjust everything in the Flow app. Torque, watt, as I would say maximum speed is not relevant for this group, assist ratio and dynamics. Assist ratio moves the characteristic curves left and right, so where the progression starts, and dynamic is how sensitive and how controllable it works. So EMTB mode, more on the range side, EMTB Plus, more in the fun zone, and Race, for sure, you see it already here, a lot of fun for dynamic riding. So important is to use also the Flow app, and we will provide Flow app also for all the bikes today. And what is nice, EMTB Plus will be made available for all CX and all CX arrays which are out there in the market today with the smart system. So every CX and CX race will have the EMTB Plus, and even if you don't have the race mode, it's really sensible, the features. And also if you have what we call video 37, so the previous version, you will have this characteristic and it's really noticeable. So with that, we talked a lot about range zone and fun zone, and now talk about the big elephant in the room. And the big elephant in the room is, when are we above those values? And when is a bicycle or an electric bicycle not a bicycle anymore? And we said we want to bring this up to your attention, because we have seen in the past e-bikes become more and more powerful, maybe not for us and for this group, but from others who see us and see what we are doing. And these others are regulators, and these are the EU Commission, and this is the Motorcycle Committee. And they say, if we come too close to an e-motorcycle image, in their perception, not in our perception, in their perception, then maybe there's a threat. And the threat might be stricter regulation, and maybe bans on trails. And what we want to avoid is the freedom that we have, because the e-pack or the pedelec, or if you add a motor to a bicycle, the question out there, when is it still a bicycle and when it becomes a low-powered moped? So the regulations say it has to have pedal assist, it has to have maximum continuous rated power of 250 watt in Europe. It says a maximum peak power of 750 watt maximum in the US to be compliant with Class 1. And for years, we had a regulation in Europe that almost no one knows, because Austria, the small country north of Italy here, right, had 600 watt maximum in their regulation. And everyone in Europe who needs to be compliant with CE conformity had 600 watt. This is why all the systems in Europe that were provided for years had these 600 watt. Then 2 years ago, Austria waived the 600 watt. They took it away and said, we harmonize with the European 250 watt nominal rated power. And this opened up a loophole. Why did this open up a loophole? Because nominal rated power and the way it is defined doesn't define maximum power in the way it would need to be defined. We have been working with these associations since, say, 6-8 years. It feels out there right now in the community that this has just been started. No, we discussed it with the UCI already 2018. So you have here ZDV, the German association, CONEBI, the European association. You have People for Bikes, the US association. And we were just at the conference, the leadership conference in the US, discussing this there. We had a workshop with the WFSGI working group to support the UCI, because we need a set of rules that make not only a fair sport for e-mountain bike racing, but support and ensure the status bicycle. So all these associations here, they do not work to take the freedom away from e-mountain biking, they work to protect the freedom of the status bicycle and trail access. So with that, we have been discussing this a lot, and now you all have seen the announcement of the German association, the 750 watt maximum, which shall harmonize with the US 750 watt maximum, and that's good that we do this, and there is more discussion to come. And we know there are many discussions and many rumors, but I can assure you that the associations are working to ensure this is still seen as active mobility, and riding e-bikes, and it's not only e-mountain bikes, it's every category out there, is still seen as active mobility and not as passive mobility, where we use a pedal just like a throttle and run into an area of e-mopeds. So the risk is real, the risk for stricter regulations and the risk for losing trail access.
I have a question. What is a watt? So this 750 watt.
750 watt is 1 horsepower.
Okay, so, but it's 750 watt peak. So how does that become 250 watt nominal? Because there's a lot of confusion about how you create these very powerful modes becoming an average. So no one seems to know in the general public what's going on.
It's pretty easy. If you if you take this chart, I shouldn't be in front of the speaker. If you take this chart here, and I think it's on page 10. No. It's here. If you take this chart and you draw a line with 250 watt nominal rated power, that's an average value. We have to go back in time when motors were brushed motors, not brushless motors controlled by software, but motors with brushes internally. And then the definition of nominal rated power was to guarantee to a consumer that over usage and temperature increase, the power would not go below 250 watt. And then someone came up with saying, oh, we use this procedure and say it shall be a maximum value. So there is a contradiction already in the definition. We all know that in the industry, maybe not you, but the engineers, the experts, and the test houses, they all know that. And this is outdated because now all the drive units are controlled with brushless motors and electronic power stages with software. Now you can control any motor from 600 to 250, from 750 to 250, from 1000, from 1.5 kilowatt, because it's just software. You measure the temperature and then you control it to be compliant. And this is the biggest loophole that we have created. And this is why we were to try to close this loophole 6-8 years ago, and the associations were just too slow to do so. And this is what we have to do now. So there's a clear technical understanding behind. And it's any time you measure it. A maximum is a maximum is a maximum. And if you go into the US, in 45 states, it says it should be not more than or less than. So a maximum is not debatable. It's either 1 hour or 1 second. It shall never be above. And the 250 watt nominal average rated power, however you call this was an equivalent in the 90s of what a human can propel. In the average, a human can put an input of 250 watt. This is how they came up with. I was not there in the 90s. Many of you were not in the industry in the 90s, but when the first pedal control system made it to the market, it was the Yamaha PAS system. This is when they discussed it with the European Commission and put it into the regulation of the type approval. And maybe add this here, the story. We in the bicycle industry, we believe that we own the regulation. No, we don't. The regulation is owned by the European Commission in a motorcycle working group. And like it or not, they define if we have type approval or not. It's not us. We can help to, let's step forward, we can help influence them and say, these associations pitch to the European Commission, and the motorcycle working group. If we provide this framework, then we are compliant with, we are still active mobility and we are still a bicycle. And we don't own this discussion or this decision. They will close the door and then we'll say, maybe they crossed the boundary now, and now they need type approval, they need a license plate, and they need... Take the speed pedelec. Take the speed pedelec, it's a L1E, it's under type approval, it has all the restrictions we do not want for e-mountain bikes. This is why we have this discussion, period. That's pretty easy.
About the 750.
So how do you react to competition pushing those limits?
I cannot speak for anyone who is not involved in this discussion, and I don't feel sorry for anyone who is not part of this discussion. But if you enter a market, you should talk to the associations. And this is why I said, and we can prove it with document, this discussion is ongoing since 2016. It started in 2012 with speed limit, with tempering and tuning, we all know that. And we are happy that we added to the norm the 15194 tuning detection algorithm. Not every system is perfect, but at least we have an agreement that we don't allow a higher cutoff speed. And now since 2016-18 timeframe, we are discussing this. It's not about competition. It's not about a brand. You can throw out any name you want today. It's about how we as an industry come up with Are we still bicycles, or are we drifting to e-mopeds? That's a discussion we are having in the associations. And it doesn't matter what the brand is. It's not about competition. And you may have, just continue on that, you may have read the article about a think tank in Germany a couple of weeks ago, where we had this workshop, and there were two questions asked. If limits come, like 750 watt, just take this one value, is the industry still able to innovate? Question one. Question two, if so, how would we communicate this to dealers and to end consumers? We had 6 workshop groups, separate, and they came back, and the answer to question one, for sure, even if there are limits, we will be innovative. Why? Because in a stricter framework, you will innovate on other features and not just cranking up numbers, catalog values, blah, blah, blah. We will innovate in being smaller, lighter, more efficient, better user experience, more software features, safety, everything, bike design. So it was a full list of innovations. And the second question, how would we communicate? And it was a room full of brand managers and marketing people, and they said, we will do exactly this. We will communicate the innovation within that framework, and we will communicate to the consumers and the dealers why we have an USP, why we are different to our competitors within this framework. And there were statements like, look at Formula One, look at MotoGP, look like in any other area, also look in pro cycling. Even the restrictions are coming more and more and more. Within that envelope, the engineers have a lot of fun to differentiate into 600 watt. If you were compliant with CE in Europe, you had to comply with 600. And unfortunately, we couldn't put this into the European regulation. And then in the negotiation the past 2 years, we ended up with 750 watt, which is 25% more than 99% of the consumers have ever ridden. And you mentioned some names. Yeah, not many have ridden. You have ridden that, but you're not representative for the market out there. You're representative for the elite bubble, and we are all part of the elite bubble. But the representative market has enjoyed the Australian limit. Austrian. Not Australian, Austrian limit. So what's good, and we discussed this during the leadership conference in the US, the Bicycle Leadership Conference hosted by People for Bikes. Look at an industry. If you want to scale your products, it's better to have globally harmonized standards. 750 watt in the US are coming from 1 horsepower, and they make sense because this is what we could argue in front of a commission. This is still a bicycle if we are below that maximum. And if we have global standards, it's also good for a global standard of drivetrains when it comes to cassettes and chains and wear and tear of your drivetrain. Guess we would have in Europe 500 watt maximum, and the US would have 1 kilowatt. Yeah, what would the chain and drivetrain and freewheel manufacturers are doing? They would have 2 power standards. Wouldn't make sense. So also for, if you think in economies of scale and scaling up an industry, global standards help.
Like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.